Hey everybody, it's Laurie-Ann Mirabito. I hope you are all well on this Monday morning. And we're going to be talking about planning today. I am actually on Facebook and also Instagram today. So I'm just going to share this in a couple of groups and then we'll get started. We'll give everybody kind of a chance to log on. And we're gonna talk about planning. So while I'm just kind of sharing this, feel free to just say hi and tell me where you are, coming in from. Let's see. Okay, I put it on a couple of groups. I get a lot of questions about how do I, do this. I do record this from my business page and I share it to my private group along with a couple of other groups. And today we are also coming in on Instagram. So let's kind of get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Laurie-Ann Mirabito. I am best known as a professional speaker, and I am now stepping off the stage and helping small business owners and entrepreneurs leverage speaking opportunities to grow their business so that they can get essentially more sales, more leads, and even greater margins. So let's talk about how critical planning is for your business, because all too often I see that people are actually having a really difficult time planning. And the reason why I think that we have such a difficult time planning is that we're trying to do it perfectly. And when we try to do things perfectly, I think that actually prevents us from even just making decisions because we're trying so hard to make it perfect. And therefore, I think it's just another form of procrastination. And when it's not going to be perfect, then, I'll put it off. I'll start planning, next month or next year. But without planning, there's no goals. And if you've got a team of people who actually do work with you and they're looking to you for the plan, for the guidance, and without that, they're just kind of like, okay, what do we do? And coming from, my days as a professional speaker, and I've written a couple of Amazon best-selling books on leadership, that was my key focus area, was leadership. And that's essentially what planning is. I mean, as a leader, you need to guide your team. You need to guide your clients. You need to guide your audience, whether that audience is online or whether that audience is live at your own event, whether you're on somebody else's stage. I mean, it's all about planning and leading. And without leading, everybody's just kind of like, they're going to get bored, and that's what, leads also to disengagement. And so your audience, not just employees, can become disengaged. So with planning, you have a vision. And as the leader, you are then sharing that vision with your team, but also with your clients, your customers, your audiences. How are you sharing your vision? What is your vision for the future? And I get that, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to be in 5 years. Okay, let's go with that. But how about, can you plan for 6 months? Can you plan for maybe 3 months? How does that feel? Because sometimes we just, yes, big companies will plan for a year in advance, and typically, depending on the size of the company, even further than that. So what can you do? Because let's just start to get in the habit of more planning. So if you're just kind of like logging in, love to know like where you are watching from today. And cool question here for you is, do you have a planning process? Are you planning either your week out, your month, your year, your quarter, etc.? Like, how do you plan? Is it something that's rather organized? Because 2019 really is right around the corner. And, if you're one of my clients, you're already hearing about the holidays, with, Thanksgiving comes, in a few weeks here in the US, and the whole big Black Friday thing is going to happen. And too many times, it's that week of Thanksgiving and we're like, oh my God, I don't have a Black Friday special and I need to have one. And then you're putting it together, without enough time, without enough planning. And you forget some steps. One, you didn't have the time to start telling your audience and just kind of like building up that anticipation for them to start thinking about that. And then you miss steps. It could be that you're missing, I forgot the email. I forgot to put it on Instagram. I forgot to put it on Facebook. All these different little steps. And when you're able to plan, you're able to like sort of brainstorm all of that information and sort of put it down on paper and structure it out so that when it does come and you're starting to implement your plan or your team is implementing your plan, it's so much easier. You are less stressful and more, and maybe you're going to do some Facebook Lives like I'm doing right here. And, you're going to be so much calmer, imagine that. But another aspect of planning that I'll share with you is like when I'm hired to give a keynote. Or speaking at any sort of event, whether it's a conference, or a meeting, there's a planning process that I have in place. And, like one of the first things, it's to sign the contract, get the deposit. And then after that, it's, most of the time I do agree to do some sort of a video for them. And that video is, something that's more or less like a template that I have now, because I know what I'm going to say, because I am going to talk about the date, the organization, what I'm going to be talking about, and even maybe promote and talk about some of the other speakers that are going to be there. And if it's in a special town, if it's away from like New England, is going to be like a lot of people that are flying in. Like if it's a national conference, well, I'm going to talk about some of the other speakers and also about the town, like what's exciting, what's something that you should make sure that you get out there to see. But that all takes planning. And then I have to plan for maybe not just my travel, but maybe also plan for my speech. Now, a lot of times I see people they put it off and they procrastinate. And when you procrastinate, then you're leaving very little time for you to put your speech together. So like right now, I'm just going to use speaking as a great example. And we just think, well, I'm going to wing it. And when you try to wing it, you also take out all of that practice time that you could use that would actually give you an amazing presentation. One of the things that I work with my private clients is stories, is having a really good story. And crafting a story is one thing, but also delivering that amazing story is another part. One of the things, that I encourage my clients to also do is to videotape as many of their speeches as possible. And, it'd be really cool to also put a camera on the audience, because then you get to see their reaction to your story and you would learn volumes from that as well. But telling a really good story, crafting a really good presentation, having, an amazing offer, that all takes planning. And when you're just starting out speaking, for your business, when you're just starting out in your business, so this could be your first Black Friday season and you probably haven't thought about it because you're too busy trying to let me just keep putting out the fires today instead of let me start planning ahead. Like maybe you figure out instead of just writing content for this week, how about I write content for this week and next week so that I can and I do the same again next week so that I can be a couple of weeks ahead of schedule. That way, you never have to worry about what am I going to post on Instagram? What am I going to post on Facebook? My Facebook Live shows, these are all planned out. And it's so critical. That way, here's the reason why I plan out my Facebook Live shows is so that I can tell you what's coming up next week. Because that's a little bit of foreshadowing. I want to tease you a little bit. and get you to come back. Or if you're not able to come and watch this, I want you to be able to talk about it and maybe like, I got to make sure that I go and see that show. And you put aside the time to make sure that you watch it. So think about it as a vacation. When you're going on vacation, most of the time, and this makes me less stressful personally, is that I know when I'm leaving, I know where I'm going, and I also, basically if I need hotel accommodations, I know where I'm going to stay. After that, I can basically wing it. I don't have to have everything that's planned out, but my flight and my hotel, yes, that's how I'm actually going to enjoy my vacation. So how do you do your planning? What's the do you plan a week, a month, a quarter? Do you plan for the entire year? I know some people who are already either working on 2019 or they've already planned out 2019. And that doesn't mean that everything has to be in stone. No. It just means that, here's my general idea of what my month, my quarter, or my year is going to look like. Because you never know, something might happen. And that could be in the news, something comes up and it's you want to, basically capitalize and use that maybe as an example, as a great starting off point. Maybe it's a new technology that comes out and you start talking about, maybe that's what your specialty is talking about technology, and you use that. But without that plan, without that structure, you're just kind of your team is just wandering around, wondering what we're going to be doing. And you're also, and I also think that it can be really stressful. I know a lot of people who do some amazing launches, who've had some very successful launches, but that all comes with planning. What emails are you going to be sending out? What Facebook Lives? What's the offer, doing the sales page, doing the emails, maybe even blogging about it a little bit. And I know so many of us, and I am guilty of this too, where I just felt like I had to do it right. And so, because I wasn't sure what did perfect look like, picking out the perfect email platform. So therefore, by not making that decision, I didn't actually have to send out any emails. Since then, I have, made those decisions, and I plan out a lot of my projects. Even if you looked at my calendar, I actually have. My week is pretty much, planned out. I know when I write my content, I know when I prepare, and I even have project time in there as well. Whether that's a new project that's coming up, one that's ongoing, whether that's, maybe I got to do a video, but I have project time in my schedule so that things get taken care of. And that's what it is. I'm sure that we've all heard that, unless, having all these great ideas and making all these lists, that's one thing. But until you put it in your schedule, right now it's just an idea. Now you're actually making a plan to get things done. And I just think that helps my clients, that helps me, accomplish a whole lot more. This is how people become way more productive than they thought they could be. So today we are live on Instagram and also right here on Facebook and in my private group. And we're just kind of talking about, planning and how this is, how it's going to help you, how it's going to put all those missing pieces right together. The holidays are approaching. And if you're one of my private clients, you've either already heard me talking about this or you're going to be hearing me talk about this in the coming, week or so, because I want everybody to start, if you're going to have a Black Friday offer or a holiday offer, is to start thinking about it now. I know it's not even November, but all the Christmas decorations are up in the stores. So let's just, let's move with it. What is your Black Friday offer going to be, if you're going to have one, or are you going to just have a December holiday offer? What's it going to be? And just start thinking about it now. And for me, as a little teaser, I am going to have a Black Friday offer. I'm still, kind of putting all the tiny pieces together, but part of that is going to be like letting you know ahead of time, giving you a little bit of information, about that so that you can make the decision whether or not you want to participate. And that just, it helps keep me keep me a little less stress free, and I feel more in control of my business when I plan. So 2019 is coming, and love for you to let's just kind of think about 2019. We are 10 months done with 2018, and I just want you to give me, throw me an emoji if you are you happy with what so far has happened in 10 months in 2018? Just kind of throw a little emoji if you're happy. It could be a thumbs up, could be a thumbs down, or maybe, you want something I want to end the year in a home run, to capitalize on the playoff, the World Series that just finished last night. And I am in the New England area, so it was a big win for the New England area with the Red Sox winning. So think about, are you happy with what has happened? What did you do well? What do you wish had gone better? And this time next year, going into November 1st of 2019, what do you want to be able to say has gone, here's what I did. What is something that you want to be able to say, hey, this is what I did in 2019. So yes, I'm basically having you think ahead for a year. But if you and I were sitting down over coffee or a glass of good red wine, because that's usually my preference in wine colors, and I just how's your year going? Now remember, it's November 1st, 2019. And what do you want to say to me? What is your answer going to be when I ask you, hey, how's your year gone? Love to, if you've got an answer for that, type that in. I want to hear what you have to say. And we'll do a little bit of laser coaching right here. Type your questions in. In your comments about what do you want to be able to say to me this time next year. For some of my clients, it's that they want to say that they've, gotten, paid speaking, that their client rosters are full. And those are some great goals. And maybe they want to start launching their first program or their 10th program, and they're kicking it up a notch and they're scaling. These are all great goals. So what do you want to be able to say to me? And if you are watching the replay, type your answer in, and because I'll be commenting later, afterwards when you have had a chance to watch this. So that, this is how critical, being able to set aside some time so that you have the time to plan. And so thinking about all the different areas, what kind of vacations do you want to be able to take next year? What do you want your schedule to look like? Is there a particular day off that you want to be able to take? Maybe you want to start taking Fridays off or Mondays off, or maybe you only want to work 3 days a week, or only a couple of hours a day. So how are we going to be really efficient and you have to start planning that out. And your content, what sort of products are you hearing your audience say that they want? One of the things that I work with my clients is I give them this bucket list, and I'm always curious, what are some of the conferences that you want to speak at? What are some of the local meetings or associations or professional trades that you want to speak at? What products do you want to be able to offer? And also what magazines, do you want to be published in, and what podcasts? So sort of like a top 5 for each of those. What is on your bucket list? And if that's on your bucket list, how can we start moving you forward so that you can start accomplishing those, so that we position you as the expert? So let's move on to the question of the week. And the question of the week that I got is, how do I know what to charge for speaking? And this is a common question because there are all sorts of budgets. Whether you are, getting paid to speak on that stage, or you are speaking for free, but you're able to make pitch the audience an offer that they can't refuse. And the number one thing that I tell my clients is, unless you know what the budget is, you can't, you can have a set fee, but there's so much negotiation that can go around that. There's always an exchange of value. So you take that. So basically what I tell my clients to do, and this is exactly what I do, is you ask people, well, what's your budget for speakers? And then you get quiet and you let them answer. If somebody is, looking to hire me as one of their speakers, I send them to my Acuity so that they can book some time on my schedule. And in there are several questions, about the event, not only like the date, the location, the expected number of people. If they want me for a keynote where they heard me, is there a particular keynote that they're looking for me to use? And I also do ask them, well, what is your budget for speakers? And that's my starting off point, because I also have books, and a lot of places will let me, either sell my books, sell my products, be able to share with the audience, how to continue learning with me. So it's sort of, it's a big question, and it goes, it's event to event, because sometimes they have speaker budgets, but they also can have education budgets. And what I mean by education budgets is like a book would classify to go under the education budget. A book could also classify to go under the gift budget. So I've spoken for some places that couldn't match my speaker fee, and that was okay because they also had an education budget and a gift budget, and they ended up buying a book for all of the attendees. So those are some of the things that you can sort of exchange, and maybe it's you get a table in their expo room so that then you can have more conversations with other sponsors. You could become a sponsor, and then that's just all great PR for you. So those are some of the things that start to plan and start thinking about your next year. What do you want to be able to tell me next year that you accomplished? How is 2019 going to look for you? And as promised, a little bit of what's coming up next week. Next week, we are going to start talking about what problem do you solve? Because as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you've got to be able to answer that question. And more times than not, the answers that I hear from people is really their process. So what problem do you solve? And essentially, is it unique? So I would love for you to join us next Monday, either live or on the replay, and be able to, because I'm going to ask you, what problem do you solve? So have a great week. Don't forget to speak and stand out.